Welcome to the Smarter Money Life podcast powered by Forum Credit Union, your go-to podcast for all things personal finance, where we break down complex financial concepts into simple, actionable steps. Whether you're looking to save more, invest wisely, or plan for your future, we've got you covered. Join us each episode as we bring you expert insights, real-life stories, and practical tips to help you live a smarter money life. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Smarter Money Life. I'm your host, Andy Mattingly, and today we're going to discuss how couples can achieve financial bliss and maintain a healthy relationship. Joining me today is Andrew Snow, one of our financial coaches from SafisLife. But more importantly, he and his wife, Sarah, have worked through this financial journey. So glad to have you here, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
Well, it's so important for people to understand how financial harmony is so important in relationships. So I'm going to just dive right in with some questions. So why is it crucial to understand each other's relationship and past experiences with money? Can you kind of share how you've approached this topic with Sarah?
Yeah, it's always been kind of a tough thing, right? People are different. Not one person's going to think the same way through. And so when we were coming into building our relationship, we're coming up on, now for us, it's still new, but we're coming up on our 10-year of when we've been dating and everything there.
10 years is a big
10
deal.
years, yeah. And then we're coming up on, this is our 5th year now. September will be our 5th year for our wedding anniversary. But it was, me and her were very different. She was a saver, I was a spender. And so coming into it, I was trying to figure out how to save money, and Amazon made it too easy to just buy little knickknacks or just pieces of things that I didn't really need.
Right.
And she definitely helped point that out for me. But we came in and we just had open discussions fairly regularly, even before we decided to live together and get married, just to try to get onto those same pages. Now we're still not perfect. I still have that occasional itch to buy something that I don't need on Amazon. And she calls me out on it still. But it's the relationship that we've built with each other there. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So you've, 10 years together, 5 years being married, and all of that. So what advice would you give to couples just starting out? Like, did Sarah say, hey, stop? Or did she have a different way of saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't buy everything?
Well, early on, it was kind of pointing out the things that I bought that I didn't need. Like, did I need another Rubik's Cube? No, I had 2 probably that were already working, so I didn't need to upgrade that, especially when I didn't have the money to do this. But it was just coming in with an open mindset, knowing that you're not going to be able to fix everything overnight, right? And not that I had a problem to fix necessarily, but we had to merge together and get on the same wavelength. And that takes time and discussion and patience and a bunch of other things. But those are the main.
Sure. So one of the big things is to talk about some of the important life events. So how did you and Sarah, make these significant financial decisions that you've had to plan for? Just maybe walk us through some of them and how you guys probably had to compromise to get to a decision.
Yeah, the one thing that I can think of the most is when we bought our house coming up on 3 years ago. We were looking, this was, of course, back in when everybody was looking for homes, and home prices were as high as they've ever been, and rates were as low as they've ever been. But we sat down and we looked at, okay, what can we realistically afford today on a monthly budget? And from there, then we were able to look out and see how much of a house can we own. Instead of just thinking, hey, this is the house that I kind of grew up in, this is what I want. We were looking at what realistically can happen. I was pushing for a little bit bigger than she was, hence my spending and her saving. But just getting down and talking with people around us, talking to her parents, talking to my parents, talking to our lenders and our realtor, and just asking people around us to keep us grounded was a big help.
Oh, that's good. That is good. Are there any other, life events that maybe you are planning for or you've had to plan for since you guys have been together that you can say, yeah, this was something that wasn't it wasn't tough for us to come to an agreement on, but we needed to talk about it. We just didn't do it.
Yeah, this was this last summer. About a year ago, I had paid off my car, and I was able to enjoy about 6 months of not having a car payment. But me and Sarah, we don't have kids yet, and so that expense isn't really in our life. So we were kind of looking ahead and deciding what are things that we can take on now that 5 years from now, when kids are in the picture, what's going to make it easier for us. So we decided to trade in my car and upgrade, just to be able to navigate that path a little bit better.
Yeah, that makes sense, thinking ahead. So you evidently have talked about having kids. Have you talked about how that may change, the finances in your house yet? Or are you far enough away that you don't have to talk about that?
I think we're a little bit far enough away there. We've got a couple of other hurdles that we want to cross.
Okay,
before that
that's good. That's good. Now, one of the things that's always important is kind of this defining roles, responsibilities, and all of that kind of in the day-to-day. So we already know that your role is to be a spender and Sarah's is to be a saver. But when we get beyond those roles, like who does the day-to-day, paying the bills and, and all of that? Or do you divide it, or like, how do you work? Even if you don't have a complete budget, how have you guys decided to work through those things?
Yeah, for the longest time, I'll be honest, I was the one that was afraid to merge our accounts together. I came into our relationship with student debt and a car loan, and I didn't have any credit card debt, but I was still the one that was in debt. Sarah was not. And so I was afraid to merge that. I didn't want her to take on that financial burden that I decided to take on when I was single. Now that I've cleared all of that debt out of my way, I've been a lot more open on merging things together. But when we were first just putting things together, we had our mortgage/rent, and then we had essentially everything else that equated to about the same. And that's how we decided to go about it. It's not how I know some friends have taken it, but that's how it ended up working for us in the meantime. Since in the last 6 or 7 months or so, we're starting to merge things together into a joint account that all of our financial expenses are coming out of. We still have our individual accounts for display money and things that I can go buy a pack of cards at the store and have some fun with it, or another hobby, and she can go out with friends and not feel like she's spending family money, as we call it. But it's just things that we've decided to split as evenly as we possibly can.
Yeah.
But we also we use Google Sheets to keep track of what everything costs that month.
Sure. Sure, that makes sense. And that is one of the big decisions that people have to talk about, is like how you merge and how you do things. So as you're coming into merging, probably one of the big discussions then is, well, how are bills actually going to be paid? Because I used to pay this and you used to pay that, but now that it's in this account. So how have you guys kind of set who does what with the family money?
We both sit down monthly right now. We call it a financial date night. And we sit down and we look at what last month was. Most of our bills are pretty steady, but you've got the things like gas and electricity that fluctuate every single month, right? And we're coming out of the cold months right now, and gas is a lot more expensive. And so my bills are a little bit higher since I take on those things, or I was taking on those things.
Right. So, when you talk about short and long-term goals, you've already talked a little bit about this, because you guys have talked about the goals that you set for buying a home and then, kids later. But what about, how do you guys handle doing short-term goals? Like any vacations that you want to take? You talked about how you sit down and talked about, upgrading your car, kind of a short-term goal. Is there any other things that you guys do? I mean, it's really great that you sit down and you have a monthly chat about what's going on with your finances. Was there anything else that you guys do?
We're planning on a couple of vacations this year, and that's when I was looking at that question that you brought up. That's really what popped down in my head. I consistently overhear you say smart goals, smart goals, smart goals, and that it was something that it really sticks with me, especially when we're looking at short and long term. We want to set smart goals. We want them to be specific, measurable, obtainable, relevant, and set a time frame for it. Those are the things that are important. We want to make sure that we can obtain it. We can't save for a cruise vacation overnight. As much as I hope wish we could, that's just not something that is realistic.
Sure.
So We try to plan out at least 6 months in advance on those things, if not more. And the longer the time frame, the little bit more we can spend. But we want to make sure that is taken care of in the short term. And those are the goals for us that come in and out of our budget, right? Our vacation, we're not going to always be saving for a vacation. We're not going to always be saving for a car. Hopefully my car is paid off before long, and I'm not going to have to save up for that. But our long-term goals, those are the ones that are consistently in our budget. Those are paying off the house, saving up for a kid's financial future, whether that be college or whatever they want to go down. Our retirement. At 31, I'm still thinking about that. It's important to make sure that you're on the same page with that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So a question I have for you, you're a saver. I mean, you're a spender, she's a saver.
Yeah.
But do you, so it's proof that you don't have to be in the same genre to work, but can two savers be happy or two spenders be happy and achieve their financial goals?
Oh, they definitely can. The mentality is going to be different, right? If you have two spenders, you're going to have to be a lot more intentional about being able to save up for those goals. If you're two savers, it's going to come a lot easier for both of you. In theory, it's not always the case, but in theory, that it just comes more natural to you.
No, one of the other things that's interesting that you mentioned, and then if you don't mind sharing, you said that like you came into the relationship and you had some debts and you wanted to make sure that you didn't burden Sarah with that, which I think is great. But how did Sarah feel about that? Was she, oh, you've got debt, everyone has debt, or yeah, you take care of that, that's fine, and then we can merge? How did you guys have that conversation? Because it seems like it's worked out great for you.
Yeah, it's worked out. I think it's worked out fairly well for us. It hasn't been smooth sailing every single day. I'm not going to lie about that. But there was times that Sarah realized that I was going to have to take debt. I graduated high school in Florida and I came up to Anderson to come to school, which it's a private university, but I wasn't on a full ride scholarship. She was, which was awesome for her. It just was not a realistic option for me. I grew up here in Indiana. I always wanted to come home, and that was going to happen no matter what.
That's good.
So
that's good.
We both came into the relationship knowing that was something that was always on my mind. I wanted to make sure that she realized that it wasn't her decision, that it was mine completely. There were days that she wanted to take on that burden. That's what the relationship was for. But I wanted to
do it. Well, that's good. So, one of my last questions for you, and then I'm just going to open it up and see if you have anything else. But how do you think you guys stay motivated towards your goals? Because it seems like you have a lot of goals and you stay motivated for them. Like, what's your secret sauce that you guys stay motivated for that?
I think one of the things that really, really stuck with me is there's not a one-size-fit-all solution. And there's going to be setbacks. Just knowing that you're going to have that and prepare for that mentally is important. Those setbacks don't have to be a major fight, right? The setbacks can be something that it's just time, hey, we're going to have an extra check in this month and see how things are going. I noticed that we had to get a new HVAC system into our house last November. That was a big expense.
Right.
And that wasn't something that we were necessarily planning on.
No one plans for that.
No, nobody plans on that, right? But we knew it was coming, and so that comes back to one of our short-term goals, where it wasn't quite smart because we didn't know what the time frame or time horizon was.
Right.
But we knew that it was coming, and so we were putting money aside every month for that. But when those things happen, they don't create a big stress point because we had planned for that. We had used a high yield savings account to store away money and let our money work for us that way.
Yeah. Well, kind of wrapping up here, is there anything else you'd like to share? I know in your role as a financial advisor, SafisLife coach, you're talking with members all the time, and maybe some of them have these situations. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Maybe that you and Sarah haven't experienced yet, but people might experience.
Yeah, it's all going to be all about open communication. Be honest with each other. Don't be afraid to hide something, but go into those conversations knowing that the other person might admit something that might not make you happy. That's going to be okay. There are ways to work through it and get there. The other thing that's nice, and I'm glad that Forum has started, is you have access to somebody like me or our other financial coach here. And you can have that third party viewpoint and take advantage of that where you can. It's nice to have a mediator sometimes when two minds don't necessarily agree. A lot of times there is a middle road, and you may not see it at first, but somebody else can.
Well, Andrew, thank you for sharing your experiences and how you've navigated the whole love and money to build a strong financial relationship. For our listeners out there, the key steps for you and your significant other so you can build a strong financial foundation is kind of, can be summarized in three things. It's all about collaboration, communication, and planning. And if you have those three things, you'll have the compromise, and you really can create relationship bliss. That's all for this episode of the Smarter Money Life podcast. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found our discussion helpful and inspiring. You can find more resources on the Smarter Money Life page at forumcu.com. Remember, making smart financial decisions is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to your financial dream. Be sure to tune in next time for more tips and insights on managing your money. Until then, stay smart and financially savvy.